We responded to the breaking news about Bill Cosby yesterday, and we assumed, oh, that's gonna be the big thing that sucks that we all have to deal with. And obviously that was just the first of many things, some of which we're gonna break down. But and I know that you, I was reading your tweets and you read the entire decision.
Yes,
so I'm just curious, like, as you're basically the only expert that I've actually talked about this. I've expressed my opinions, I've absorbed tons of them. Do you have a different reaction to any of the stuff yesterday as a result of your background and the reading of the decision?
Let's see. So particularly when it comes to Bill Cosby, or like all of the stuff from yesterday?
Let's start with the Bill Cosby here.
So with regard to Bill Cosby, it just feels like this is one of those unfortunate seminal points in time where courts decide to make new law. They decide to make a rule that benefits the masses. And an unfortunate aspect of that means that someone who is more than likely very culpable is going to go free. And so it was a big day for survivors, for individuals who believe in justice, to try to balance that sense of justice, because you want courts to get it right, but at the same time, you want bad people to be locked up. And in this situation, we couldn't have both.
Yeah. So, but according to their logic, they did have a point or whatever about the process that put him in jail.
Yes, the point really is that prosecutors cannot essentially promise not to prosecute you and usher you or encourage you to go testify without your Fifth Amendment right, which is what happens when you're in a civil suit. And that's what happened here, where Bill Cosby essentially was facing a prosecutor with potential criminal charges. And the prosecutor said, I'm not gonna prosecute you, you can move on your way. And then there was a civil suit brought against Bill Cosby where he doesn't have a right to say, I'm not gonna testify under the Fifth Amendment. And so he ended up making statements in that civil suit, and then a prosecutor comes right behind him and says, I'm gonna take those statements now and prosecute you, in fact. And so this is good that the court said, you know what, prosecutors can't do that. When they give you their promise, it has to stick. And so that's good for individuals moving forward when it comes to our individual rights as accused. But at the same time, it does mean Bill Cosby goes free.
Okay, that's fair, well taken. But I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they get him on any of the other stuff? I mean, like, that guy is like record breaking in the crimes that he's apparently committed over so long. There's so many women. Yeah. How did it come down to one prosecutor who's like, whatever, I don't care, I'm not gonna do anything? Like, how did it come down to that? How did they not just, oh, okay, so we can't get you on that one. Well, there's 50 plus other women. Like, what? How does the system not have any way of getting at him?
I love that you brought up that point. Because in giving my analysis, and I posted an overruled video on this, my analysis was limited to this case, which was a prosecution for sexually assaulting Andrea Constand, that one individual. And so it doesn't include all of the other women who come forward. It doesn't analyze their cases. It doesn't have anything to do with their cases. The court has to limit its focus. And that's also what I limited my focus to, that in this particular instance, Andrea Constand was the victim here that sustained the conviction. And because of the circumstances, he has to go free. The reason that the prosecutors aren't necessarily going to bring charges again using any of the other women's stories is because of the statute of limitation. Oftentimes it's already lapsed. And so we did see post Me Too, we saw a number of states passing laws to say that, you know what, we're gonna remove the statute of limitations here, because there were a lot of events that happened decades ago that people are now just essentially mustering the courage because of how our society shames people. They're ready to come forward or to speak up, but because there were statute of limitations set, saying maybe only had 10 years, that time has since lapsed. And so that's why prosecutors are unable to pursue the other women's cases, in addition to the fact that the evidence may not be there. And this was a second trial for Bill Cosby. So people are already questionable when it's just a he said, she said situation.
Yeah. Although, as was pointed out by a comedian that I retweeted, it's like she said it's a classic case of he said, she said, she said, she said, she said, she said, and then you just go on until you run out of characters. I want to ask you one more question, and I swear we're gonna get to a rundown. This isn't on a rundown, I'm just fascinated, and I want to use Adrienne's expertise while we have it. I know that I'm a person who talks at a YouTube camera about politics, so I'm supposed to believe that everything I believe is totally right and totally founded. Especially white males tend to have that proclivity, but I don't. I want to learn. So statutes of limitations, should that exist? Like, is there a case to be made? Because it seems like it's kind of just a way to get out from justice. But again, I'm not an expert. So what do you think about it?
Okay, so statute of limitations, and for anyone who's unfamiliar with that term, that's the period of time that you can bring a claim, a suit, or a criminal conviction. So if it's 3 years, you can't do it after that. And when it comes to how our society has set up the statute of limitations, of course, because white men have run the game, white men have set the statute of limitations for certain crimes. For murder, there is no statute of limitations. You can always be held accountable because murder is so heinous. It's what they call a male in se type crime. That's a Latin term. That means it's inherently wrong. You don't need a statute to tell you don't murder. It's the same thing with rape. But unfortunately, hey, you've got legislature out there who says, no, we'll give you 10 years to come forward. Until then, good luck. And so that becomes problematic because, again, as we mentioned, society has not been welcoming, particularly of women to come forward, where there were even allowances for years to essentially slut shame or to blame the victim. And also juries, which are a representation of society, were unwilling to convict rapists unless it was something that involved heinous physical force. It depended also on the race of the victim. For a long time, it's been held and continue is the fact that thought that Black women could not be raped because we are not innocent by definition. And so there were so many reasons people weren't coming forward, and thus these statute of limitation bars become problematic when people are ready.
Not innocent by nature?
Yes, that is something that is long held, and that's why, in part, Black women are hypersexualized. And so, yeah, there's a time, and there are also opinions out there where they'd say you can't rape a Black woman; it's impossible, because it's the thought that we are sexualized Jezebels. And so, unfortunately, that's a stereotype that continues to play out, and why oftentimes Black women will not come forward with sexual assaults because it's the thought that we were never victims to begin with. A lot of these stereotypes will follow all sorts of groups in some way that will prevent them from seeking justice because what's the point when you're not going to get it?
Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, thank you for all that. I do appreciate that. For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.